Thanks, Lydia. That was just a perfect opportunity for me to be able to introduce our guest keynote speaker. I do have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Larry Mitnall. I met Dr. Mitnall in 2021 as he was being inducted into the Kansas African American Museum Trailblazers Hall of Fame. And as awesome as this man is, what stuck in my head that evening as I met he and his wife is that between the two of us, we have 10 kids. We could have started our own troop, our own pack, right? So, but because I know that you can read, I won't read his impressive bio in the program, but I do encourage you to please do so. I will highlight, though, he is a double board-certified psychiatrist for children, for adolescents, and for you adults. He is an expert in parenting. I should have met him 35 years ago. Mental health and child development, and he does a lot of this much via due to his online school, which is called Be Well Academy. Feel free to scan the QR code that's up there to learn more information about that. When he's not working clinically or consulting, he's in his spare time, he's meeting people where they are via social media, earning him the name the TikTok Doc. And so, again, I encourage you to look at those, very encouraging. During all of his spare time, he even plays instruments, writes music, and hangs out with his family, and he and his wife are also foster parents. I want to leave as much time as possible for Dr. Larry Mitnall to come up, so if you would help me welcome Dr. Larry Mitnall to the stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Really, I am honored to be here. I'd be remiss to not thank Janetta and Kevin Gorman and Mike Redondo and just all the many wonderful people who have been working so hard to, I think, put this event together. I think in conversation maybe a couple of years ago with Mike about my family, our personal experience with scouting, and how formative and important I thought that was in the life of my children. I'm excited to just talk about this moment that we're in, where I think we are in terms of culturally, and how wonderful it is that that Scouts, I think, offer a really great opportunity. A great opportunity for us to reclaim some of the important things that are essential to the development of our children, and some of the tools that we've kind of lost along the way in looking for the newer, kind of shinier things. It turns out that the things that kids really need have been the things that they've always needed, and I think a lot of that can be found in scouting. So actually, one of the things, before I even jump into the words that I had prepared, one of the things that's really jumped out at me about this event. So we've had the privilege of hearing some wonderful singing. Actually, when I heard Madison start singing, I thought they did not want me on this on this panel. I mean, there are people with real talent here. But one of the things that I appreciate is, did you guys catch on the slides? We get to see this young person kind of featured. Below their stately name was the name of their parents, right? That foundational community that not only gave them life but continues to support them today. And then below that, you get to see the council that they're from. And there's something important about that rootedness. And I just thought, wow, they don't even know my talk, but we're already starting off on the perfect pitch, the perfect key of where I'm hoping we can go over these next few minutes. So first, I'd like to begin with a story. A story that kind of exemplifies what it is that I sometimes see in clinic as we're walking through the highs and lows, the goods and bads of what it means to be an adolescent today, of what it means to be a kid today. So for those who aren't familiar with the psychiatric office, when families come and see me, we begin all together. And we begin together on purpose, right? Because I want a vision. Hopefully we're thinking about things together and mapping out a course for what it is that we're hoping to improve, change, or praise, actually, in the life of a child. And then we split up for a little bit. So that gives the teen often a little bit of time to just kind of decompress and maybe say, what's on their heart without fear that there's so many adults kind of, spying in on their conversation, and also time for parents and for us to talk about, some of the struggles that they have, and then we kind of rejoin together at the end. And so, obviously, because of HIPAA, I can't give any specific, or identifying details. But in this one encounter, which unfortunately is not uncommon, I'm sitting with a 13-year-old. And in our one-on-one time, this 13-year-old has, tears-streaked cheeks. She's looking at the ground. Shoulders are hunched over. And again, you don't have to be a psychiatrist to know something's wrong, right? And we begin to recount what's gone on for her day. Well, Doc, I had a tiff with a friend at school. Now, she didn't use the word tiff, obviously, that's my word. But, and so in teen fashion, I'm starting to learn the terminology that they use. So I asked her, as all psychiatrists would, spill the tea. And so she begins to talk about her and her friend having a falling out. Right, and some hurtful words were said, and then they walk away from each other. Right, they don't spend the rest of the day. They're nursing kind of their hurts and wounds and talking to their friends and getting consolation. All right, that's normal. Right, that's been normal from probably the beginning of time, not just middle school, high school, the times that we exist in. Then both parties, probably, I don't have the other party in my office, go home and also talk about, rehearse, think about, ways to make this relationship better, or how to move on from a fractured relationship. So she said, I returned to school expecting an opportunity for us to talk through, what's going on, or for us to revisit it or to reclaim that relationship. But instead what she walked into was a hallway of people snickering, looking at their devices, in which a picture that they had taken together, she was cropped out and her face was put on top of an image of a pig with a meme below it, saying something kind of derogatory. And so that is not normal, right? That is not the common experience that we've had, certainly, and that civilizations have had before. That the things that young people struggle with can become the forum where people are sharing things online that has 1,000 likes and 10,000 disparaging comments. Right? You can imagine what that does to the self-esteem and the self-critical thoughts that already pervade the minds of the young people that we encounter every day. So we're at a new time. We're at a time in which, this type of nuclear bomb can be really, really destructive in the lives of our kids. And so in this last year, when we hear declared from the American Academy of Pediatrics or the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatrists, we are in a mental health crisis. What is going on? I have to think, right, that our kids aren't armed in the way that they used to be, because the world is a different place. That our kids are inhabiting a world in which, it's hard to gain forgiveness. The things that you do might not just be mistakes that you've made interpersonally, one-on-one, but things that might be echoed and shared with other people, right? They inhabit a world in which their one mistake can be replayed over and over, and they can find it hard to find freedom, consolation, confidence in who they are and who they have been called to be. And so this reminds us, what are those tools, right? What are the things that either they're not armed with, or the things that we've not given them that they need in order to surmount, to overcome this place that they find them in. So this brings me to a scout story. So our first experience was with my oldest, who's now 14, and we're living in beautiful New Hampshire. Now, if anyone asks where you're from, I say I'm from Wichita, Kansas, because I love it here, and this is my place. I'm 6 years in, and this is home. But there was something beautiful about being in rural New Hampshire. And among those things, one of the scouting, activities that we did were the goal or focus was, looking at plant life and observing things and how many leaves do you find and how many animals can you find and that sort of thing. And so that got my kids just dreaming and thinking, can we grow plants? Yes, well, your mother can grow plants. I can observe them and water them on occasion. And so we did it. We did one of those standing box, garden things, and some things grew, some things didn't grow. And so then that leads to the next question. Well, why do some things grow and some other things don't grow? Well, kids, it takes really good soil, right? It takes, the pH has to be right, apparently. Again, this is someone who didn't grow up on a farm or knowing such things, but apparently that's important. That's important too. Pests and being able to guard against those things, right? So all those things are important. That rootedness, that attachment is what is so important. And again, that's what I was pointing out with the slides, that it makes clear, right, that the rootedness that our kids need are actually found in us and in good opportunities like scouting, which actually puts a child at the forefront and at the feet of loving, wonderful adults who are able to model great virtuous things, to encourage them to take on the right types of challenges that help transform their lives and help them to grow, right? But that growth comes from a really great rootedness. A rootedness to the things that endure, a rootedness to the things that really should be. So, is it possible? So I've mapped out what I think is a part of the problem of our time, which is how do our kids develop an identity? How do they know where they stand? Are they really rooted, right? Again, post-COVID, we knew this, we could see this, the writing on the wall as well, right? When kids started to lack some of the other mentors too, outside of their home, who were there as encouragements to help them on to the next big thing. And so I want you to be encouraged. So this isn't doom and gloom. That actually your presence, the things you say, the way you are, the things we encourage our kids to be a part of actually do translate into things that mean something for them, right? The silliest example I can give you is that every day in my clinic, someone's going to wear a Led Zeppelin or a Nirvana t-shirt, and I'm always like, do you actually know this band? Do you listen to their music? Yes, my dad listens, and my mom, okay. So they do have good things to tell you then, right? And so sometimes that can be the entryway into meaningful relationships, of reconnection, of deepening that root system to help them reach their fullest potential. And so, again, what's specific, though, about the Scout thing that makes this really come alive? Well, one is that, the biggest place that our kids inhabit outside of school is the world of screens and technology and social media. And obviously I'm on there, so I know that I can look like the pot calling the kettle black. But often what I'm on there doing is hopefully having this conversation with parents that I want you to know, one, what the traps are, but how to also work on your relationship and deepening that with your kids. And so while you're likely to run into the newest robot, the greatest technology, the whatever comes up in the the algorithm has recommended in your feed that you buy, right? It's Scouts that remind you that of the things that endure, right? Of the things that are meaningful, actually being thrifty is good for you, right? I remember that standing out to me as a young parent, and reading through the Scout Law and these marks of virtue and thinking, thriftiness? Is that really, do I have to sell my bow ties? No, that's not what they're calling you to. But it is recognizing that, that we are stewards of the material world and are called to be effective, efficient, and not just consumers. It also makes me think, I'm often using television and movies to encourage kids to take on something hard. So yeah, we can start with, Tony Stark being the gallivanting, single ladies man, but really the ultimate sacrifice comes at the end of the story, right? When he is committed to life and family and friends and offers that up in service of, protecting the world. But I know that even there, right? Even there, we're tempted to think, okay, the big production values, that's what life is about, right? Or that's what our kids experience. That's what we're aiming for. And again, Scout stands in the gap and says, actually, let's take some time. Let's be out in nature, surrounded by the things that God has created. Let's knit our hearts together by telling stories, right? By acting out skits and standing around a fire, because actually that is where civilizations have been forged, right? That's where the greatest stories that have ever been told have happened. Not in a movie theater, but with us together, living side by side, IRL, as my teens like to say, in real life, looking each other eyeball to eyeball and face to face. All right, so a little bit of brain biology too for those who don't know. So we actually have more data now on the influence of some of this technology, both on ourselves and on the moral thinking of our kids. We see this in some of you might know there was a hashtag kind of thinspiration, which was encouraging, really kind of edifying and trying to highlight this really corrupt, destructive force of kids kind of measuring their bodies and BMI by these really awful, impossible kind of standards, right? We've seen that so there's a really great study out in Chapel Hill in which kiddos were shown great images. So the great images of a puppy, a unicorn, which aren't real, a narwhal, which is real, right? And that lit up the dopaminergic system, the ventral medulla. Okay, yes, bright and shiny. And then they'd show them a picture of something like a catastrophe or an explosion or someone being bullied, right? And that lit up the prefrontal cortex, which says, no, inhibit, stop. This isn't the way, right? Well, what happened was in the study they could actually insert an image that should tell the prefrontal cortex, stop, don't look at this. This isn't for you. But if you add 1,000 likes, a few emojis, actually that down-regulates, that turns off that inhibitory response. So in terms of shaping influence, this is a critical time for us to really measure what are the things that endure, and then how do we get kids connected to that. So I'm not going to leave you with just the diagnosis, because I'm a psychiatrist and I love talking on the other side of what are we going to do about this. And I think one way to encapsulate that actually is a model that you've heard before, and no one has ever called it attachment, strategy. But actually, that's exactly what it is, which is like, share, and follow, actually. So in terms of developing likes of habits, so you've probably had this experience, or if you haven't, I'm going to tell you about it. So I will sometimes see teenagers who, when I ask them and we're trying to explore what are the things that give your life meaning, what are the things that really excite you, it can be really challenging for them to come up with something to put in that place. And partially it's because they have a computer in their pocket that connects them with everything, and so sometimes that becomes this vortex that sucks away all of their kind of motivation to look outside of themselves. So developing the likes means being out in nature, and often that means not just alone and kid you get out of the house, but us being out of the house. Or doing those silly things we used to do as kids, like sitting outside and just staring at the stars. Right? Or trying to interpret clouds and see what they mean or what shapes we can make of them. We know that this time together actually is important for, and can be important in the emotional development of our kids. But we have to begin with getting to the things that they like, right? And if they don't have those likes, taking them away from the things that might be cluttering their vision for those things, so that they can, get opportunities to do that, right? Each year my kids would look forward to the Pinewood Derby. Again, I'm not sure why, because I am not technically savvy in that way. And so we were that family that even at the last minute, we're still filing the nails and painting and repainting, and then realizing the second coat of paint probably added just enough weight to disqualify our car. But again, do my kids like it? They like it, right? So that becomes my like. And in that like, we are bonding. We are connecting together. We're developing that root system that attach us to one another. And if I can't be that, having a community of other families meeting together, right, whose intention is to help develop and shape those likes, or give kids an opportunity to develop them, are part of it. Share. All right, so share, and by that I mean, the things that we like, we tend to just offer it to other people, right? Advertisers know that to be true. The algorithm actually knows that to be true as well, and so that's also how they rank things on the system. So sharing in the life of kids. I've taken kind of a step forward. So like and share. Sharing those really great moments with our kids, inviting other kids maybe to be a part of that as well. And then following. Following is probably what brought us all here today, because you knew there was a really great organization that is doing some wonderful work in the life of the young people in our community who are committed to helping them to have really great models in their life. And helping to supplement that vision that kids are called to. And it turns out that doing the good thing is also the great thing for them. So once, by a teenager, I was accused at the end of our meeting. She's looking at me. This is a different person, but looking at me quizzically and says, "I see what you're doing, Dr. Mitnall." I was like, "You do? What's that?" And she stares me in the eye and says, "You're trying to make me a good person." I was like, "Oh, I've been caught." Because it turns out my goal for you isn't just, freedom from anxiety, freedom from, sadness, freedom from distraction, but freedom for something, right? And that comes from those anchor points. So that's my encouragement to you, that I think if we do this, if we can figure out a way to both invest in and be the person for whom a young person can say, "I like them," we share great things together, I want to follow, I want to subscribe to the things that make their life worthwhile, then I think we will be on the road to helping kids be physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Thank you.